tuned into InvisiYouth Chat Sessions, a video podcast series. Our episode starts right now. Here's your host, Dominique Vale.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the InvisiYouth Chat Sessions, where you can check in for your dose of stigma-breaking, empowerment-building, humor-filling life hacks and motivation tips for all of the medically adultish people in your life. I'm Dominique Vale, the founder of InvisiYouth, and today is episode 18 of our video podcast series. Now, this is going to be starting a little bit of a mini-series we'll be having during season 2, so most of 2019, which is something that we are bringing forward, talking about a topic we get lots of DMs and questions on when I'm doing public speaking or through our social media, is talking about relationships in all of their forms. So whether that's romantic relationships in your dating life, sibling relationships with doctors, or with your parents and caregivers, we want to bring our experts from around the world that we've gotten to work with that really exemplify the best in all of these different types of relationships. And of course, we will be starting it off with the lovely caretakers, the parents that we all know and love and have. Obviously, I talk about it all the time on the show and in my public speaking, but my right hand is my mom, who's been a nurse for 35 years and is my partner in crime, my best friend. So naturally, when I had to figure out with my team at InvisiYouth who would we bring on as a dynamic duo, naturally I found one of the other mother-daughter duos that I love most, Madi and Beth Vanstone from Canada. You guys have heard Madi's name throughout the years with my charity. Madi is one of our Global Brand Leader All-Stars this year. She is 17 and lives with cystic fibrosis. And Madi's mom, Beth, prior to Madi and her sister being born, Madi's mom was a financial advisor, and when Madi was born and diagnosed with cystic fibrosis, Madi's mom made it very much a goal of hers to make sure she was always keeping Madi as healthy and safe as possible. So she ended up becoming a full-time caretaker on Madi's and really working hard of learning a lot about cystic fibrosis, going through the medical journey with Madi. And the two of them have really honed in on having not only just a dynamic duo relationship as mother and daughter, but really building a name for themselves in the activism community in Canada. Madi, one of the best things I always say about Madi is that her social media activism is really unique to her. It's very beautiful physically, obviously, but then also just in how she talks about her activism for cystic fibrosis and showing young people and empowering them how to live a fun, fulfilled, and well-rounded life with chronic illness. And Beth has been a real big part of that social media activism as well. One of the biggest things that we always say is that Madi might be 17 and she may be our youngest global brand leader, but Madi has a resume that could trump people 3 times her age. She and her mom have gone to Canadian government. Yes, guys, you heard me correctly. These two go to government and make things happen. In 2014, Madi and Beth's mom were part of achieving a goal of having government coverage for expensive medications. I'm probably going to butcher it, called Caldecco, which can correct 3% of the cystic fibrosis population's defective gene that causes the illness, and Madi is within that 3% population. So it was that real big push of the two of them fighting for medication coverage in Canada that really made the two of them have their own unique stamp in the activism community there. And now the two of them continue doing that activism for more medication coverage for those living with chronic illnesses and working with charities like InvisiYouth Charity and Cystic Fibrosis Canada, fundraising money. They've been a part of many fundraisers for CF Canada, doing the Cystic Fibrosis Walk there, and later on in 2019, the two of them will be doing a trek of the Great Wall of China to raise funds for CF Canada. So seriously, these two are just the most well-rounded duo. They're a dynamic duo. I'll say it all the time, and I'm so excited to have them on. So everybody welcome Beth and Madi Vanstone. Hello, you two. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Now, if you guys are watching on our YouTube channel, you will notice that Madi and Beth are in a hospital setting. No, they're not staging that just for you guys. They're actually in the hospital. This is how dedicated they are to InvisiYouth and this video podcast. We were making it happen live. So we're going to have a fun new set today. This is season 2 brings all these new fun changes. We have a set, and now Beth and Madi bring a set to us that you all can relate to. So I'm really excited to have the two of you on. You're two of my favorite smart people. I say it all the time. So we want to get all of our listeners and viewers to get to know you two better. So what better way of doing that than a little bit of our segment, Rapid Fire Roundup.
Rapid Fire Round.
All right, everyone, you know with Rapid Fire Roundup, this is our quirky, fun way of letting our guests fire off information about themselves so you get to know a little bit more about them. Now, this one, since we have a mother-daughter duo here, we're going to be a little bit more of a mother-daughter tag. We're going to be asking them questions about one another, so they're going to list off the first things that come to mind for both of them. So the first one I have is what would be 2 words that you guys would use to describe one another?
Funny and courageous.
Aw.
I would say bulldog and caring.
Okay. There needs to be an explanation for bulldog, meaning
She just goes after what is right. Like, there's no, thinking about it. If she thinks that there's something that is not right, she's just,
she's
just on it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Bulldog Beth Vanstone. That's going to be your new nickname from me, Beth. Bulldog Beth.
Okay, she's passionate.
I love it. So besides your phone, what would be 2 things that both of you would need to leave when getting out of the house?
Oh, animals.
I would say animals. And then, what's another one? What did you say?
90 Day Fiancé.
Yeah, that's our favorite show. I'm with her.
It's our guilty pleasure.
Oh, wait, we just jumped to another one. I said, what is the one TV show that the 2 of you watch together? So now we just answered that question.
That's
90
it.
Day. Yeah.
90 Day Fiancé. Oh, man, I love that. That's really amazing. So what would you say if you had to give each other your signature dance move? Maddie, what is your mom's signature dance move, and what would be Maddie's signature dance move?
I mean, we're really goofy together. We'll just start dancing to, commercials. A commercial comes on and we're both yeah. So, she just kind of, bops. She's just,
I'm a bopper.
She's a bopper.
She's I just remember the dab.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
I was
Lots
into
of
the dab
dabbing.
thing.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
old, but she still does the
Yeah,
odd dab
the
when she's
odd
going
one.
into the pool
When
and
it's
whatever.
appropriate.
Yeah, she throws it in there.
Yeah.
I love that. So if you guys had to live during a different time period, which time period would you pick?
I've always been really into, the early, 1900s.
Yeah.
I would live in, that time. It just seems so,
30s, 40s.
Yeah, it just seems so, simple.
Oh,
And
I like it.
I'm always, my mom says that I have, an old soul. So, yeah, I'd say, yeah.
She loves the fashion from back then, and
Yeah.
I was a kid too. I think it seemed like it was a much simpler time, right?
Yeah,
Although
absolutely.
It's leaving a lot of our great medical advances behind, so that could have been
True.
a challenge, right?
Just a little bit with the doctor knowledge they might have had in the 30s. So if you two had to describe each other's taste in music, what word would you use?
Fabulous.
And Maddie went silent.
Yeah, right?
She likes country, but, she likes the older country.
Okay.
I mean, not really old. She likes, George Strait, the classic country.
Oh, okay. I was going to be like little Loretta Lynn over there.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
Garth Brooks, we'll
Garth
take it up
Brooks.
to the 80s. Come on.
To the 80s.
I like young country. She's more old. But, we mesh. We mesh.
Okay.
We worked out.
Yeah.
I like it. Okay, so what would be your favorite sport, and if you have a favorite sport team, too?
Okay. This is a good question. Favorite sport, horseback riding. Favorite sports team, 100%, million percent over and over, Toronto Maple Leafs, of course.
Yeah,
That is
both
a
of
nice
us
hockey
understand.
team, right? That is a nice hockey team, because I just feel like it has to be.
It's Canadian,
Okay,
right?
good.
Canadian, and, I'm obsessed with them. And I love Austin Matthews.
Austin Matthews is
Love him.
one of the players.
I've met him twice.
Oh, so
He
are
comes to
we
sick kids and visits.
are we going to be tagging him in this podcast? I feel like that needs to. There we
That
go.
would probably be a really good idea.
Shout
yeah,
out!
'cause-
We're putting it into the universe right now.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Austin, we love you. Yeah.
God.
He's awesome.
So if you two, our final question would be, if you two got matching tattoos, what would they be?
Just breathe.
We have Just Breathe. My whole family has it. So, like, my dad, my sisters, cousins, aunts, uncles.
Nice.
Yeah.
Is it all, like, in the same script, or do you have it tattooed
We all
differently?
picked our own
We all
font.
have their own. Like, my dad and uncle, they're very, like, masculine and, like, big. And mine's just, like,
Hers is
dainty.
daintier. Mine's smaller as well.
yeah.
Oh, nice. Oh, I didn't
Great,
even...
that's done. That was easy.
That was so easy, and I didn't even know you two had matching tattoos. I'm gonna be bringing that up at the dinner conversation next time with my family, see if we can get some matching tattoos. I doubt it. My sister won't go for it. I'll just throw it out there now.
I didn't think I'd ever go for it either, but you know what? It was a great message. So
There we go.
yeah.
Oh man. So switching off of matching tattoos, it just seems only appropriate that we would be switching into our next segment, Rebel Game Changer Status.
Rebel Game Changer Status.
Alright guys, with Rebel Game Changer Status, you know this segment and how it goes. We get to discuss with our guests the step-by-step guide of becoming your own advocate, activist, and what InvisiYouth calls Rebel Game Changers in the chronic illness and disability community. So, going off of your sort of relationship together, I kind of wanted to ask you both, since you do a lot of activism together and separately, in the public eye with Canadian government, like I mentioned, and all of that. This is sort of a two-parter, more on Beth's side. How have you supported Madi in the activism she does? And then on Madi's end, how has it made you a better advocate for your own health and also in activism, having your mom's support along the way?
Okay, so initially when we started out, well, actually I've been doing it for many years. So newborn screening for cystic fibrosis was another something that I advocated for and supported because I thought that was really important. So we did that, and that was a pretty easy peasy piece. Getting the medication that was $350,000 a year paid for by the government,
Oh,
that was a little more challenging.
just a tad.
Yeah, just a tad. However, I really strongly felt, like she said, I'm a bit of a bulldog, and what's right is right, and people deserve health care, and they deserve to have medications that are going to save their lives. So right off the bat, I'm like, okay, you're not going to do this? Let's see. So it's just kind of having that passion and belief and going for it. And we actually navigated the whole system ourselves a lot, figuring out who to call and who to go to and how to get the process. We were very fortunate. We had a lot of media support.
Mm-hmm.
Maddie had done a really impassioned letter. I believe she was like 11 or 12 at the time, that was published in the paper, and that just went, because the medication is literally saving her life, right? So that was, so we just went.
Yeah, I mean, for me, being an advocate wasn't easy at first because I was very, very shy. Always have been very shy. So putting myself out there was a challenge.
Sorry, beeping.
But, yeah, I'm beeping. But, I mean, my mom gave me the confidence and just encouragement to not be afraid to put myself out there and don't be self-conscious. Like, just do it because, I don't know, it's what's right. And now I find advocacy very fun. I like going after stuff and making a difference, and I think it's really cool to be able to do that. So
Yeah, and kind of going off of that, Madi, I know even having worked with you for 1 year and going into a second year with you being one of our all-star brand leaders, you really have, even just in that sort of 12-month time period, really honed in on your voice more and more as we've gotten to work together. So I kind of want to ask, even in terms of taking those steps to becoming more vocal, what were sort of the first types of activism you might have been doing that they felt comfortable within more of your shyness as you then evolved into more public advocacy?
I mean, I've always been involved in, like, the CF walk for CF Canada, and that was more of the, like, low-key forms of advocacy that I did because to gather a team together, you had to tell people about it, and even just, like, with my mom doing social media stuff and, like, sharing our story along the way and posting about when I'm in admissions and what's going on, it was more, like, low-key, and I didn't realize it was, like, advocacy until, like, later, but that was, like, kind of, Yeah, that was the more like low-key stuff.
Yeah, and definitely. I know that's something especially we always joke with the InvisiYouth family that Beth is sort of like our surrogate global brand leader for all of you, is that when Maddie's posting, Beth is just equally excited with all of our other brand leaders and the work that we're doing with the charity. So it's definitely having that sort of tag team force between the two of you doing work together. And like Maddie said, sort of letting Beth be a part of that, sharing behind the curtain information that allowed you and your public mentality to come forward more as well.
You guys are doing amazing work.
Yeah.
Like, we're so excited, and I know I'm kind of like the cheerleader behind you all, but I'm so proud of you and all the global brand leaders and everyone that's participating to make change. So we're excited to be there, and yeah, whatever I can do to help spread what the important message that you guys are getting out there, I'm all over it. But yeah, you know, we've done everything from. She was at a Shinerama is a big university program that raises money for CF, and it's in all the colleges and universities across Canada. I believe in the U.S. as well. Okay. So last year, I think we spoke in front of 2,000 first-year students, right?
Nice.
So it was probably one of the more difficult even than doing all the interviews and that we've done on TV, because these are kids that are in Frosh Week, so they're out like having a blast and everything, and then their leaders all bring them into this auditorium and then we're there going like, okay, so some sick people that really,
You're like, hello everybody.
So to bring you down, so it was really kind of like we were sitting there and everyone's so excited and having so much fun, and we're like, oh my goodness, how are we going to go up on that stage and kind of keep it light, keep it fun, but get our message across without, and Madi was awesome. Like, I can't even tell you. Like, people started following her on Instagram. Like, people that were in there, they were laughing at her jokes, and I was just like so proud of her, because that was probably the toughest one, right? In that group, right? Because they weren't people that were coming specifically
to talk about. And they're so close to my age too. Yeah. I'm used to talking to like older crowds. These people were like 1-2 years older than me. So I was like, oh my god.
No, I do really love that. And it kind of also, going off of that too, I wanted to ask, sort of even on the flip side of the two of you doing work together, Madi, even mentioning a lot of times you're advocating with other individuals that are older, especially when you are a young adult and in that teenage bracket. So I wanted to know from the both of you, how do you sort of handle those moments as a mother-daughter duo when you either have different ideas of treatment ideas that you would like to do on Madi's end, or even in activism roles, if there's things that Madi and you both want to do, but one of you guys might disagree on how to bring it forward?
You can go ahead with.
We disagree a lot.
Absolutely.
People think that it's all perfect, but we actually argue a lot just because I think we're both really stubborn, passionate, but we're also very sensitive. So we butt heads all the time. But I mean, at the end of the day, we're both like here for each other and we're a team, and those arguments aren't really important. But they happen a lot.
But we have the same ultimate goals, right? So quite often our approach might be different. So, she might say something and I say something, and we kind of go away and come back and go forward with something that we can meld together that makes both of us happy, right? So I think having the same end goal makes it easier, and bringing in different opinions from, mom and child, I think it helps and works a lot, because you can appeal to perhaps a larger demographic because you've got two, older and younger.
Yeah.
And
I think my mom's perspective of like advocacy is really important too as a parent, because she's not only advocating for patients, but also parents of patients, and getting that point of view out there, which is like really important for maybe like a new parent of like a CFer, just knowing that there's hope and what you can do with the situation, I think is really important.
Yeah, and even Beth even hit it right on the head. It's always about sort of having the same end goal. A lot of times if you disagree even on treatment plans and you're advocating for yourself as the patient, a lot of times you have to remember that the end goal is always the same, of trying to better your day-to-day, your health, and it's more compromising in the medical situation without compromising health as well as sort of the big end goal.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and that transfer of power is interesting, because as Maddie's nearing full adulthood, having her input from nothing, and now it's a much wider, like the other day when we were, she's been sick, and I called down to the clinic, and I started to talk to the clinic nurse as I normally would, and then she was asking me, and I said, you know what, you can just talk to Maddie, and she's at that point. So it's a very interesting transferring the power and realizing as a parent when to do that and how much to do that. And so when I talk to other parents, because it's a really scary diagnosis, as you can imagine, right? A lot of CF people, just talking about empowerment and empowering your child to not feel victim to your disease, but to be a warrior. And it doesn't mean you have to be out advocating and banging down doors, but you need to advocate for yourself in your appointments and for your health, and having a parent support that and encourage that rather than, enable them or make them a little bit weaker perhaps because you feel bad for them. And you do. Like your parents, I'm sure at times look at, it's really hard to be that hardcore, to not just say, just come here, give me a hug. Sometimes you just can't do that because that will only make you weaker. So, it's,
Yeah, and even kind of going off of what you were saying too, Beth, there is a lot of times, especially with young adults, there is either sort of two different scenarios. It's either being born or developing at an early age a chronic illness or disability, so it's part of the family dynamic very early on, where in a lot of situations like myself or other teenagers and young adults, that sort of injury or diagnosis happens in their actual teenage years while they're finding their own voice and platform. So there's different ways of that dynamic for the two of you evolving as Madi aged, and then sort of giving her more and more reins of control in verbalizing her advocacy, where on my end and a lot of other young adults, they're being diagnosed or injured in their teens and 20s. And so then you're sort of having that disconnect right away because parents are trying to help your end goal of your health and that journey, but then also you have built your own voice and how you like to live your life. So you're trying to then mesh the two.
I think that's, quite frankly, I think that's got to be a lot more difficult for anybody than, having your baby diagnosed is devastating, but then that's all they know. Maddie has friends that weren't diagnosed until late teens, and that throws everybody up. And, your situation as well, everybody has to learn. And at teenage years, if you're ever going to be defiant, that's the time, right? You have all that thrown at you. Challenging.
No, absolutely. And even kind of going off of that, I wanted to ask sort of the both of you, what tips would you give to other teenagers like yourself, Madi, or even Beth, other parents wanting to become better advocates in their own healthcare when they're at doctor's appointments, or on the outside doing more social media activism or working with charities and doing advocacy work?
For me, going into high school, I thought my advocacy was it didn't make me fit in because nobody does it. Nobody has the same situation as me. So I tried kind of dialing it down so I would fit in. And then grade 11 came and I was like, no, I want to be different. So I would say don't care what people think. That's my big tip is don't be afraid to go out there and do your own thing, because especially in high school, at the time, it seems like it's the end of the world if you don't fit in, but you're not even going to think about those people. So just do your own thing, have fun, and don't be scared. And yeah.
I like that.
That's my tip.
I like that little tidbit of information, Madi. That was very well said.
So, and as a mom, I think that allowing your child from the beginning to have a voice. I remember Madi, and this is kind of a funny story. doing her treatment. So they do physio and masks all the time. So she was like 3, and we did that twice a day, every day. And all of a sudden, she decided, so firstly, she always had a little princess cup with her milk. She was a princess, so still is. And we were sitting there, and I went to do her mask. And she said, "No, Mommy, I'm not doing my mask today," right? She was like 3, and I was like, "Ooh, I haven't dealt with this, and this is something we have to do every day." So I said, "Okay, Mad, that's fine. But here's the deal. Like, they're your lungs, and you're going to let your lungs get really sick, and then they're going to have to go to the doctor." And, I tried to, and I said, "But that's okay. That's your deal, right?" And I put the mask away, and she said, "No, Mommy, I just mean that I needed to have a drink of milk first." And then she continued on. So I think kind of learning to now I lucked out because it worked. But I was like, I just don't want to start that fight at 3 years old, twice a day, every day. So I thought, I'm going to give this a try and let her have her own voice at 3 to make that choice and to have a little bit of the responsibility for her own health. And fortunately, it went well, and we've been rolling along ever since. So I think that was kind of her first thing. Like, she advocated a little bit. I gave her the responsibility. She made a better choice. And then as we went through appointments, she would do that. The better I explained things, what we were fighting for, what was going on. She wanted to be participating and raising awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even kind of going off, especially going off of that too, you kind of hit it right on the head, Beth, was that we'll always say is the biggest tip with parents coming in and asking about working with their teenage kids or their young adult children that are in their 20s and having that disconnect is being diagnosed with a chronic illness or disability, especially in that coming of age time frame. You lose a lot of control over choice because choices medically have to be made for you. And they're doing things that you might not want to do sort of in your own schedule. So it is, especially in that parent dynamic of allowing in sort of in those small battles of things that will allow them to have a bit of control in the just the how they do a medical treatment. You just kind of allow them to have some control over part of it. That lets there be some choice for them, but then also not compromising their health. And that's the big priority for parents too.
Absolutely, I agree. Like, so if there's a treatment plan and there's variability in perhaps the timing or whatever it might be, if you can take a big picture and then knock it down and say, well, here you go, let you pick when it's going to be best for you. Even if that's the power they have, I think everybody wants to feel empowered, right? And when you take away the power because somebody's medically fragile and needs and they don't have that power, then it's weak, and then you start kicking back. But I think if you can pass on whatever you can to make the child feel empowered or the young youth feel empowered and be part of the process, I think it makes them feel a little bit better about it.
Yeah, exactly. I know that the sort of scenario explanation I've used in a public speaking engagement with a parent group once that they really loved is I said, well, you have to be the vice president in their healthcare. You can't be the president all the time. You have to be vice president. You interact with them, you make executive decisions, but you have to let them not allow you to be the ruler of their entire life structure. So you have to look at it from a different perspective of not being the backseat driver in a different example, but sort of allowing there to be discussion of the round table of why would you want to do certain treatments or asking questions of your own kids in that way. And then back on the other side of being the young adult, being able to feel that open fluidity of conversation of not shutting down and being fearful of mentioning why you might not want to do something for your health because you're worried of how your parents might react, but having that open dialogue is critical.
Absolutely. I think knowing that agreeing to disagree a lot is something we use in our, because a lot of us in our family are very strong, and I'm like, you just can't change somebody's mind sometimes, right? But compromise, you can compromise, and as long as you do it within a scope that keeps your child or youth healthy, compromise is a really good thing, right? To pass on a little bit of the power to your youth or young adults so that they can feel empowered, right?
Yeah.
And even kind of going off, Madi mentioned it early on, a big sort of tip. Obviously, I will mention it because I am the founder of a nonprofit, but I always will suggest that working within different settings. So Madi mentioning, I usually speak to people that are much older than me and they are parents. And then Beth, on your end, even working with my charity and working with InvisiYouth, and you're so supportive of other young adults that are interacting with us, being involved in not just your own network of being a parent and only working with parental support groups, but seeing the charities or activism communities or networks that your kids are interested in, and then vice versa, having someone of your teenager or a young adult with an illness or disability, seeing what goes on in a parent support group that you might be part of as well, so then they can see both sides of it, and then you're getting sort of twice the amount of charitable support at the same time.
Absolutely. No, that's huge, right? And it gives you such a better understanding. So much learning can be done from both sides, right?
No, absolutely. And kind of going off of that, and before we go into our intermission segment that I know you all have been loving so much, building that community and that connection is something that we are really supportive of with at InvisiYouth charity. And the only way we can sort of continue to do our virtual programming, hosting events, getting to introduce you to amazing advocates, and doing leadership programs like our Global Brand Leaders with young people that are incredible like Madi, is by having donations and fundraising for InvisiYouth charity, since all of our funds that are donated and raised go to our programming, our advocacy campaigns, our events that we host internationally in the different countries that we work in. So any support that you can always give, I know we'll be popping a link below of our donate page, always sharing it around. We always say pay it forward any day of the week for our charity or others. It's greatly appreciated on our end. So always pay it forward and share that sort of charitable support with those around you. It's definitely helpful, and it gets us, as I say, keeps the lights on and keeps the mics working here. So that is very appreciative for us. So going back into our regularly scheduled programming, I'm going to go into our transition segment where I get to talk less and I get to be told a story. This is So That One Time.
So that one time.
Of stories, but one that, I don't know, we talk about it all the time just because it was like a funny little thing that happened. We were doing, I believe it was our first press conference with Jim Wilson at Queen's Park. He's like
our member
of parliament, so
okay.
Very important stuff. I was like so little. So we're in there, and he was like so clear with me to turn my phone off. He said, everyone turn your phones off. Very important, like very stern. And I was like, oh, okay.
I'm just going to interject too. So we're at a big important desk with, flags, very official. There's a big poster of Madi.
Cameras.
There is just a gallery full of media in front of us. And this is happening prior to everything going live, so that's kind of the setting we're in, and we're like pretty nervous because it's our first big deal, right? So we're just sitting there, and I'm like, okay, turn my phone off. Like we both everyone turns their phones off, and his phone goes off, and everybody looked at him, and I was like, really? And he started laughing, and he threw his phone over to his assistant and was shaking his head. But, like, it's just one of those funny things that just kind of, like, stuck with us. So stern. Madi,
so
make sure you have your phone off. We're going live, right? And we're like, yeah, we're on it. And, yeah, and then he says to the press galleries, he's, like, laughing. He goes, I just finished telling Madi to make sure her phone's off. And it's, like, his is ring, so he just, like, threw it to his assistant. And everybody got a good chuckle out of that. So it was pretty fun. Broke the tension, which was fabulous because we were just starting and kind of nervous, right? We were like, good to see that the old guy can screw up and we didn't, right?
Two things. One, it was not the youngest person in the room leaving their phone on. And two, what was his ringtone? Was it normal? Did he have a quacking duck one? I'm curious about it.
Boring one.
It was a boring one. Oh,
Mine's a duck.
Yours is a duck? See, I knew somebody had a duck out of the three of us.
Yeah. That would be Madi.
That would be Madi. Perfect. I think mine are ice cubes chinking or a guitar strumming, to be honest. So
I like that one.
I love that. So going back out of our story time, we're going to actually go, instead of Maddie and Beth's life stories, we're going to go into the pop culture headlines that come into the chronic illness community. This is one of my personal favorite segments. We'll be doing medical pop headlines.
Medical pop headlines, medical pop headlines, medical pop headlines, medical pop.
With medical pop headlines, we get to go through some of the big pop culture events that are happening related to chronic illness and disability, and Beth and Maddie are going to give us some of their feedback. So naturally, everyone, it's 2019 early if you are listening to this in real time, and I cannot bring on two cystic fibrosis advocates and not mention this movie. So there's been so much discussion and such positive feedback coming out with the movie 5 Feet Apart. If all of you know, the director, Justin Baldoni, who's also one of the lead actors on Jane the Virgin, shared Maddie's fantastic review video of her review on the film. So there's sort of a two-ended conversation going on. It's the wonder of having a rare disease in a major film, but then also the conversation of accurate storytelling, accurate casting. And so I wanted to ask from two individuals obviously closely connected to the storyline of the film, and obviously knowing people that were in the conversation of making it as accurate medically as possible, what do you feel when you see a film like this coming forward, both from a accuracy standpoint, but then also an awareness standpoint?
I think it is absolutely incredible. The CF community was pretty torn for a while. I think they still are. There are some negative things people are saying, but as a patient that's actually the same age as the two main characters in the movie, I found it so accurate. I've heard nurses talking about it upstairs where I'm staying, that they thought it was accurate from a nurse standpoint. They worked so hard to make it accurate, which I don't think a lot of people acknowledge. Mm-hmm. We kind of had some behind the scenes ins that we were kind of hearing little things.
Well, Claire, of course.
Yes. My lovely Claire Weiland.
Yeah, so since we knew Claire was involved, we knew it would be amazing. And then the amount of awareness, I knew when I heard that it was coming out, the awareness was going to be crazy. And it was. I have people messaging me all the time about, oh, you have CF? I saw this movie. And I'm like, yeah, it's great.
It's opened up the dialogue that wasn't there. I think, number one, a lot of people are afraid to ask, right? I think there's a lot of fear surrounding whatever it might be. People just don't want to ask. They don't know what to say. So I think it opened up a lot of dialogue. I think the film depicted the situation so closely. Now, when I was seeing a lot of the negative feedback prior to the movie being released, I was really surprised, because the CF community would and should know that every single person with CF experiences a different journey. Mm-hmm. It affects everyone different. There's over 2,000 different genes in cystic fibrosis, which means that there is everybody's experience is different, different but the same. Hospital settings, clinics, everything is the same. So your care may be similar, but never the same. So U.S. versus Canadian CF care, there's a lot of differences. So for one person with CF to compare their specific, individual journey with a movie is kind of unrealistic, and I thought that perhaps my opinion is that they would have known better and had a better understanding. In the big picture, I was thrilled with the awareness that was brought forth from this movie. We worked tirelessly to raise money for Cystic Fibrosis Canada, to buy awareness, to get the message out, what this disease is all about. So this is priceless.
Huge.
I can't remember the actual numbers on searches for cystic fibrosis after the movie came out. It went up 150% or something.
I think it went up 100%. Don't quote
that. But it was extravagant. The numbers of people would watch the movie and then go and look. So that movie I think it's a game changer. I think, and even just the dialogue, having people message Maddie or message myself, because it's invisible. people don't see, people don't understand the maintenance. I always call it, she's my high maintenance kid, that goes into keeping her healthy at home, right? Like so much is like she goes out and you smile and you just go on, but nobody knows, like with so many of these things, the work that goes on to just keeping that smile and going forward, right? So I love it. I thought it was well done. It
10 out of 10.
touched me. 10 out of 10 for sure.
I love that, and I love sort of even you touching on it too is a big thing. So naturally, in terms of like an accurate casting standpoint, we always hear this all the time. We work with a lot of disabled actors across internationally, and I know the big push forward is being able to have, even just from the business side of making a film, making that ability of having auditions for those with the types of chronic illnesses or disabilities should be more open and accepting from the casting standpoint, so there could be more actual representation in the actual illness or disability form. But then the other side of it is exactly what you said too, is this is a rare disease, and for a lot of other films that have addressed chronic illnesses, having that people being able to find individuals like Madi and like yourself, and especially with Claire Weiland and everything being such a big part of it from the behind the scenes, and her foundation, Claire's Place Foundation, working so closely with Justin. He's such a family friend to that family as well. Them really putting a lot of heart behind it. It wasn't used, as I'll say, in other films, it wasn't used as a plot device. It was just part of the narrative. And that's a big ask you can get for films that address chronic illnesses, to make it less of a plot device of bringing drama and tension or romance into a story, but having it just be an authentic part of a character, which I think was a big decision that that Justin had made, and that the having Claire being part of it in terms of helping with the actors as well was really important.
The awareness and the factual information that was passed on, and it was like a beautiful story, but so educational with regards to cystic fibrosis. Like, I really thought they did that beautifully. And it's not easy to educate and keep it interesting and dramatic. And I thought he managed to blend it beautifully. Even as far as, the ports looking so real. The cough, like she practiced the cough. Now everyone has a different cough, right? With CF, right?
I love a good CF cough. You can always, you can tell now.
Yeah, you just missed her after treatment. She coughed all the way down here, which is why she had her mask on. But, like the cough, like I think they work so hard, and I felt the heart and soul of Claire and Justin in that picture, and their desire to make it real. 12 out of 10. I'm going higher.
There were so many little details that not a lot of people would notice unless they were close with someone with CF or had CF. But they threw so many little things in there that we noticed, and they made such a big difference in how we saw the movie as patients and family and friends and stuff, which I thought was awesome too.
And of course, the big thing on our end is having a film supporting, being able to support the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, supporting Claire's Place Foundation, being able to even financially have that support, is able to do a lot of the accurate activism work that is outside of the Hollywood realm. So that was a big, as we'll say, props massively to the actors, but props a lot really to Justin for making that a very powerful decision on his part as a director as well. So we give massive props to Justin. He's a good ally in this community, I will always say.
Huge.
And kind of going into a second story as well I wanted to bring up, which is a little different. One of the more latest headlines this early spring, sort of late winter, was with the musician Demi Lovato. She made a lot of headlines in the past couple weeks with news outlets seeing her out and about in California and mentioning about her body, calling her fuller figured, and making commentary, especially since she has left her rehabilitation facility with her health struggles that she has. Obviously, she's discussed a lot openly about her bipolar disorder and eating disorder as well. And she made a very big public comment talking about that there's so much public scrutiny and what what her version of healthy looks like, and that shouldn't be triggering to other people, and really making the headline and the actual author writing to her personally and DMing her to apologize for that sort of way of describing her. And we got to see a lot of the feedback and response from especially a lot of young women with chronic illnesses and disability, when Demi hit on that point of what healthy looked like, in air quotes, on her end of what was healthy. And so we hear that quite a bit, especially from young women with chronic illnesses and disabilities, that at times they do change their physical form, or they have medical accessories or adaptive equipment on them, that it makes them feel that they look different than the quote-unquote normal young adult girl around them, or their friend group or social group. So I wanted to kind of ask the both of you, I know, Madi, mentioning you talking about being an activist in high school and sort of having that difference in terms of even just the work that you do outside of sort of what is your free, as I joked, is what is our free time and fun time is activism work. And sort of that twofold of when, even on my end, when my symptoms physically altered my body, or you having to have different medical equipment or pieces with you, how do you sort of gain that sort of inner confidence of what makes you sort of look different? And then even on Beth's end, being a mother of 2 daughters as well, how do you instill that, knowing from a medical standpoint sometimes you're going to look differently than what's being perceived in the media as the norm of healthy?
Yeah, I'm going to hit this one with like a more generalized problem, which is a lot of girls are self-conscious about their weight. Mm-hmm. I struggled with that in like grade 9. I was like, oh my God, I thought I was like a house. Like I thought I was huge. I was like dieting, and it wasn't like healthy, but there's so many standards that are set like online. You see like the Victoria's Secret models and like, you know, oh, I want to be them. But like, as I grew up, I realized that, well, relating it to my CF, well, Kaleido made me gain a lot of weight, but one day I might need it if I get really sick. Mm-hmm. I need a little bit of room to be able to lose weight. And like, it just doesn't matter. Like, just be healthy and take care of yourself, and how you look isn't relevant. Just like, feel good and like, I mean, eat healthy just so you feel better, and do it for you, not for anybody else. So like, instead of trying to lose weight, I just was being healthier because it made me feel better. But like, just focus on yourself, I would say.
I love that. Very well said, Madi. I liked that.
Thanks.
I think that, you know what, I think the standards of beauty are different from everybody's eyes. Mm-hmm. Hollywood's is ridiculous. Like, let's be real, yes, you know. Like, to me, somebody is beautiful that is feeling their best, you know. So if feeling your best means you have a great chair that helps you get places better and see more things and live a better, more fulfilled life, that to me is beautiful, you know. And I think as a person that may be in that chair, that being able to recognize that, oh my goodness, like I have the whole world is opening up to me more than it was, and feeling that as the beauty, as opposed to what somebody that you don't even know is projecting on you, is way more important. My girls, I've always said, like, inner beauty always shines out. Like, I really believe that. And I think that it doesn't matter. I've known people that physically are beautiful but become ugly very quickly when you get to know them, sadly, and vice versa. People that maybe aren't as physically beautiful, but their soul and their whole essence is so beautiful. Yeah. You know, they'll be the most beautiful person ever. So I think that whatever is projected from Hollywood or whatever is just so irrelevant and so unimportant in the real big scheme of things, right?
I think social media is really toxic. Even for me, it's such a false standard, and it sucks because a lot of people get sucked into that. I did for a while. I feel like everyone does at some point, and it sucks.
No, definitely. I love that you sort of hit it right on the head, Beth, was with if you need medical accessories and adaptive equipment, the most attractive thing is that you're now excited about being able to do more in life. And if that requires you to have different medical accessories with you, on my end, when I had if I needed to use a cane to help walk, or if my limbs, a lot of times with my neurovascular condition, they're bruised, they're 3 times the size, they're not the prettiest thing on the left side. It is just, I was able to make medical accessories look more fashionable and tie different sort of scarfing around my braces that I would wear so it matched my outfits, because that mattered to me. So it was more on my end, sort of what made me feel healthy in what I was trying to do for my health. But then also, like you had mentioned, it is that inner confidence of feeling a sense of inner beauty in terms of you being able to do more of life and experience more of life with a chronic illness. It makes you feel more beautiful in that end.
Absolutely, yeah.
Even going off of that, one of our previous guests, who's a friend of ours in the UK, Ali Hemsley, is a lifestyle blogger in the UK, and she did a whole info video about being real and being yourself, and how she uses a cane sometimes in heels, and she can wear fashionable designer clothes and have friends that have prosthetics or in wheelchairs, and they're wearing designer dresses and amazing shoes, and it's just changing what is the stereotype of the outside world's version of the only version of beauty, and showing that there's different types of beauty and there's different scales and everything. And like Madi had mentioned, showing that even on social media, sort of turning the toxicity of social media in terms of fitting in a mold, and showing what makes you look physically beautiful in your own way, and sticking to it no matter what other people will say.
Sorry for interrupting. Who's the new? Is it Selma Blair that has MS?
Yes, Selma Blair. When she walked with her cane at the Hollywood party.
Like, I only saw beauty and strength.
Right.
That is all I saw. I did not. The cane was not a standout. It was pointed out by the media, and it wasn't even pointed out as a negative. I didn't find. I thought it was all very positive and empowering, and I thought that was such a great example for everybody and anybody that needs. She went out there and she killed it. She looked fabulous, and she wore it well.
She really did. And she even, in an interview with one of the morning TV shows here in the States, she said she was nervous about bringing her cane and wasn't even going to go. And it was a friend of hers that said, well, just your cane's decked out. It's fabulous. It'll match your dress. Let's go. And It was just sort of her dawning, going, I need it in order to show up. So I'm going to wear it and show up with it. And like you said, it was beautiful. Whoever did those photos at the Hollywood Vanity Fair party are amazing, because they were beautiful photos.
Absolutely. Yeah. We need more of that.
Absolutely. And going out of discussing beautiful fashion like Selma Blair, we're going to go into our final segment of the show, and it's actually a new segment, guys, so I'm excited to bring this one to you. It's the Teeniatric Way of Life.
Teeniatric Way of Life.
All right, everyone, with the Teeniatric Way of Life, this is one of our new segments we're bringing on in Season 2. And like all of you know, we work with teens to young adults, and it is living with a chronic illness or disability. This is sort of the growing period for all of you. You're transitioning from pediatric to adult health care. You're growing into your own voice, your own way of your own public opinions, your own way of life, and having to do that while living with a chronic illness and disability, as we say, is a teeniatric way of living. It's our word that we have with InvisiYouth charity. And so in this segment, we're going to talk about how you manage those different sort of health struggles and health adaptations while you're still trying to find your own way and finding your voice. So I'm going to start off with the teenager that is on this call, not me, even though I look like I am. On Maddie's end, I wanted to see sort of, especially since you've had CF for your entire life, transitioning into your teenage years, how has your sort of dynamic of your role as the patient changed from being a kid into your teenage years?
Luckily I'm at a really good hospital, so the transition has been really gradual, I find, and even with my mom helping and kind of slowly handing over the reins, it's been really helpful, and I have that support. It's definitely scary because I'm turning 18, so I'm leaving the children's hospital, which will be really different, but it's all about kind of preparing myself, and having support that when I do switch over, I was like raised by my parents that like, if you don't like something, you have to communicate that and just make it work.
Yeah, I like how you put that too. A big thing that we'll always say is sort of how that interaction might change, especially being a teenager and then going into your early 20s and into that adulthood realm of chronic illness or disability. It's you sort of then get to the age becomes wisdom mentality, like you said, the slowly you're becoming a bigger advocate in your own healthcare, your family starting to bring in more pieces of your healthcare to you to make decisions as you're sort of fully preparing more and more. And it is exactly, I love how you put it on your end, Maddie, too. A big thing we'll always say is ask questions and ask if you have suggestions. And people love to be asked for advice. Asking your medical professionals, your clinicians, asking your family their opinions on decisions while you're evolving is really important, and it empowers other people when you say, hey, could you help me with something, or hey, I need a piece of advice on why should I be doing this, or what do you think of this treatment. People feel empowered when they get to be involved, but then you're also taking control of asking the questions.
I'm getting ready, and like
I'm getting ready.
it's not like I'm being like just like tossed over there. Like,
yeah,
I'm still gonna have my mom with me to consult, and you know, she's always gonna be involved in all of the decisions I make. My whole family. So it's not like I'm gonna be on my own.
And with sick kids that we've been followed in for the last 17 years, we've been involved, Maddie and I, in part of the studies for transitioning. So they've been putting a lot of effort into making it a simpler transition from child to adult care. So being part of that and putting our input in and learning as we've been going through has been really beneficial. They actually have the team. So the team from St. Mike's, which is the hospital we'll transition to, comes to sick kids, and the two healthcare teams sit down together with the patient.
Awesome.
To discuss, they got to bring them up to speed on the last 18 years in this situation. There's two teams and you sit in with a meeting and you can ask questions, and then we go and have a visit at the adult hospital and get to know what's going on there before the transition. So it's pretty big. And when, you've had 18 years experience with one team, it's kind of like, it's like a handoff, right? But they're pretty gentle, I think, in doing so.
I'm lucky. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I love even kind of going off on, as your role, Beth, as the mom in that scenario of making that evolution. How have you felt your role with Maddie sort of evolve as she's gotten older, and even in this new step of now she is going to becoming her own 18-year-old adult in her own healthcare? How, as a parent, have you seen that your participation evolve over time?
I think that it's been really good because we've slowly gone up. I've always been a part, and I've just been holding back and back further. Mm-hmm. Now, there was times when maybe like a few years ago, when I know that she would kind of fluff her symptoms a little bit because she didn't want an admission, or she didn't, and I let her talk, and then I would take the step forward and say, okay, well, she may have missed that she's been coughing a lung up for the past 2 weeks, right? We might want to put that out, and she's had headaches. So now, getting closer to adulthood, she will put that out herself. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. So it kind of just took, and you have to listen. It's like whatever's going to be best for her. But if she, as a mom and as somebody that's watching her medical care, mm-hmm. the caretakers needed to know that. So if she's not going to bring it forward, then I will. And now she knows enough that she needs to take care of that, and she's open with everything.
I know how to prioritize now. Do I want to stay at home and feel really gross, or do I want to go in and feel better and then come home and do all the things that I want to do because I'll be feeling good? And before I was I don't want to go into the hospital, but now I'm it's going to help me. So
yeah, and even like you said, it's sort of you're becoming your own lead expert on your own health, because naturally you're in your own body every day. I say there's not a better advocate than you, even if you don't feel like it, considering you are the human being living in your body. And I love how, Beth, you mentioned that too. It always has been sort of a dual conversation with the both of you. So kind of going off of that, I wanted to know what would be sort of your tips for other families and having that parent or that guardian with their child conversation of how they can sort of strengthen their communication with one another as they start to transition into that teenage and young adulthood?
Well, I think it's really important that from very young that you have discussions and discuss symptoms and feelings and how you're feeling. I think explaining from a young age why that needs to be passed on so that they have that feeling all along. You know, like they probably will hit the bumpy road at 15, 16. Hopefully you'll get through that. But I think it's important for them to be able to express themselves, to understand that it's going to be better in the end. And the teams are there to help you, right? Like we're so fortunate to have the healthcare that we have. So going there and understanding, which she does now, that, okay, I feel it's time. I know my body and I know I need to go in. Yeah, it's going to be 2 or 3 weeks in the hospital, but coming out, I'm going to feel great. And having that understanding and teaching that along the way as they get old enough to absorb and understand, I think is really important for them to feel empowered and take charge of their health, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And even kind of going off of that on Madi's end as well, how have you sort of found your voice in your own healthcare? I know you had started off in the beginning of the show mentioning you were a bit shy and sort of built into being more vocal, but what would be sort of as you've aged, how have you sort of developed your own voice in communicating with your family about your own symptoms, but then also with your medical team too?
I think because of the advocacy that I've done, I've gotten more comfortable with speaking up about stuff, and I've gotten to know my body a lot more in my teen years, and I understand, and I know when something's wrong.
Those things, yeah.
Yeah, I think I've gotten to know my body, and I've gotten more responsible as I've grown up. So yeah, I would say just knowing myself and being okay that like sometimes I'm not okay, and just accepting that and just accepting.
I love that. It is sort of like you had just said, it's okay for your health to have, it ebbs and flows even on my end with chronic illness. I mean, I run a nonprofit, but and I'm 26, but I still have discussions with my mom, who's been sort of my medical advocate as a nurse, and also my mom and the person I trust so much with everything. Having those discussions even now when I'm going to doctor's visits or treatments on my own, there is still that communication, but then also knowing that on my parents' end of working with me, that they ask me questions outside of my health, because a lot of times it becomes this sort of every dinner conversation, every car ride, every shopping day, you're sort of asking medical questions, and then you start to feel like all conversation revolves around your health. So they really always make sure to check in and asking how my work is doing, how different trips into New York were doing, how are my friends doing, dating, how is that doing? So asking about non-medical questions is great too.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, and kind of even going off of that too, I wanted to sort of ask to kind of end the note with the both of you guys as well, is sort of what advice would you give other parents and other kids, sort of that mother-daughter duos, those parents and teenager duos that are trying to maintain I'm putting in air quotes, like the normal daily life? What do you guys do with one another to build that family dynamic outside of your chronic illness?
I'll start. So it's okay. I think that you have to have common interests outside of the illness, like you said. Like, so in our house, we have horses. We all ride together. We care for our horses. We care for our animals. We also love hockey. We watch hockey games together. We have a really wonderful friendship that is based on many different things that we enjoy doing together. So that's certainly not always the topic, isn't always the illness. It's not always the fight. It's not always that. There's so many other things that we can enjoy together. So I think that's important in just like any relationship. You just build it and enjoy each other's and understand and appreciate each other's differences and strengths and weaknesses, because we all have them. I think that's huge. I think, just have fun outside of that. It can't always be about that beast in the room, right? It has to be about all the other wonderful things that make you a family.
Yeah. I find like sometimes you can kind of get trapped in this bubble where it's like you're just frustrated and tired, and the illness can kind of consume you in a way. Mm-hmm. So you have to be careful to build a life that doesn't happen that often. Like, keep busy and find things that you like. Even me and my friends, we bond over. Me and my best friend, we bond over Toronto Maple Leafs. And that is something that I like to focus on. Just find other things to focus on, other than your disease. And when something comes along with your illness that you have to deal with, you deal with it and you move on.
Yeah, and I love how you even mentioned it too. It's sort of having that open dialogue with, especially becoming a teenager and a young adult, sometimes that dialogue, as it changes between the teenagers and young adults, becoming more vocal and proactive. Sometimes there becomes sort of that power struggle, and it can be, but I love how Madi and you, Beth, as well, both of you really put it, is having the non-medical interests and discussions. Even on my end, I'll always suggest to other young adults and to their parents as well, as sort of setting up sort of conversational barriers, if you will. When we're driving to a doctor together, or if I'm on the phone with them while I'm going to a doctor, we can talk about my health while I'm going. But when I'm leaving the doctor and coming back, that's not a phone call that I'll have. I'll wait until later. Or if we're having dinner conversation, 90% of the time, we never addressed my health issues at a dinner table. We were talking about school or guys or work or charity work that we were doing. That was my job. But sort of dinner table was off. We never discussed my health issues because I did have a sister as well, and we wanted to talk about her and her work and her life. But then if we were washing the dishes, I might have my mom or my dad come over and ask about how I was feeling that day, or, oh, you look like, how's that symptom doing? Or did you grab this sort of medication? Are you doing X, Y, and Z? So we able to sort of have breathing room. And I know the big thing we'll always say is sort of prioritizing the well-roundedness of a child and as a young person, because like Madi even mentioned, and what she does so well with her activism work, is that CF is part of her life journey. It's not the only part of her life journey. So really embracing all of what you do as a young person and realizing that you have to prioritize your loved one as the full person they are and not always prioritize their health first. There are scenarios where that gets to take a backseat a lot of times.
Absolutely. Also, I refer to her, like I said, as my high maintenance child. I got two girls, and she's just a little higher maintenance, or a different kind of maintenance, maybe. But that's just the disease is part of you. That's it. Whatever it might be, it's a part of you, and there's a lot to focus on besides that.
No, I love how you put that as well. It is like you and Madi have both said, there's so many things that you enjoy together with her health and with activism, as well as outside of it, and being able to watch like 90 Day Fiance and watch some ice hockey, which I've grown to love over the years as well. So that really knowing that there's that sometimes I'll always say to young people, sometimes we forget that we have a life outside of our health. We have to be reminded that, we have to do other things as well. And sort of having that check-in with your family unit is very important. And I love how the two of you really exemplify that so well with one another. So, ending on how awesome the two of you are in your relationship, that is the end of our episode with the two of you. So I want to thank the two of you so much for being on the show, but I also want to make sure all of our listeners and viewers get to find the two of you, because we keep talking about these awesome Instagram and social media accounts that the two of you have doing your activism. I want people to be able to find you, so you two get to pick who goes first in terms of where we can find you, Beth, on social media, and where we can find Madi as well.
Okay, so I'm on Facebook. I'm old school Facebook. So we have Madi's Miracles and 14 days a painting project. So they're both, so.
For me, I'm most active on my Instagram, so it's just Madi.Vanstone, but I'm also on Facebook, and it's just Madi Vanstone.
I love it. And we're going to have all the links below, guys, so you can check that out as well. I highly encourage it. Maddie's Instagram, her feed is amazing. We'll always say it all the time, so you should definitely check it out. You can see her all over ours as well. And as always, you can find InvisiYouth on our Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at InvisiYouth. You can find this InvisiYouth chat sessions on our YouTube channel and the podcast on pretty much every network. You can find audio podcasts on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, iHeartRadio, the whole 9 yards. So make sure you subscribe, thumbs up, 5 stars, leaving a comment as well. We'd love to give you a shout out on the show and our social media. And definitely let us know when you guys get to connect again with Maddie and her mom, Beth, and give some love to my favorite mother-daughter duo outside of my own mother and I as well. So definitely let us know when you get to find the different traits that you love with your parent dynamic as well. So I want to thank Beth and Maddie again for being on this podcast, and we will speak to all of you again soon. Bye.